Hi, I'm Rofo, and welcome to my semi-unhinged rant about Academy Gate Town and solo-host invasions in this game in general. So in the last month, I've taken a nice little break from Elden Ring. I just got a little burned out from playing the game too much, but also the lack of major changes to the PvP with the 1.05 patch was pretty disheartening. In fact, all of the footage from this video is from the 1.04 patch, so about 2 months old at this point. I've just been sitting on a whole bunch of footage. Right after making that Stop Saying Twink video, I went and pushed this rune level 45 character as far as Black Knife Tisha would take me, and that apparently is the Halleck tree. I mostly just really wanted to get Loretta's set for this fashion, but I also found how stupidly easy this game is with spirit summons, since I never really used any of them in my first playthrough, or really any subsequent playthroughs until now. Anyways, the PvP still isn't balanced, and it's annoying. Yes, I've heard plenty of that. And people have tons and tons of opinions on what needs to change to keep them interested in PvP, but honestly, who really knows who From Software is even listening to on those issues? There's no English-speaking community manager to manage the community. But I feel like people really gloss over what is routinely my biggest issue in this game, which is the poor activity. I can get used to imbalance in this game, or whatever balance this game ends up with, but I can't really get used to that balance if I can't get enough invasions. And I should mention this one caveat, I can get plenty of invasions, but I can pretty much just get them from like rune level 20 to rune level 50, and then like nothing, and then supposedly at meta and like basically just above 100, there are tons of invasions. I just haven't taken a character up that far or really given those areas a fair shake in terms of invasions. Lately, I've heard a lot of you bad red men demanding that we get solo host invasions back in this game, and I'm here to tell you that you think you want that, but no, you're wrong, you don't actually want that. You fools, you absolute buffoons. Look, I get the reasoning behind why people think they want solo host invasions, but unless those invasions are accompanied by some pretty major caveats and additions and some structural changes, I think they'd only be satisfying to the most toxic members of our community. But before I get to that point, some background on the footage that you're seeing here. So about a month ago, I spent 3 to 4 days solely invading around Academy Gate Town at rune level 45 with plus 10 and plus 4 weapons. I remember back in my first video on how to invade Lernia of the Lakes, I said that this place is kind of the Sweatfest area of the game, and I stand by that take. But whereas in the past I'd avoid this sort of place like the plague, I've come to embrace it for purely ecological reasons. Lernia is a truly beautiful place, a watery, low-tide smelling haven for the frog-like albinaurics, the blue Miranda flowers that pelt foes with some sort of blue raspberry flavored Elden stars, and of course the lobsters. But unfortunately, it's being polluted and overrun by a species known as the Bonfire Duelists. People like to say that hunters are the best conservationists, and that message definitely resonates with me. I want the PvP in these games to continue to grow and happen organically, and for that to happen, I have to do my part to eradicate the invasive Bonfire Duelists in this region. As a self-proclaimed radical ecologist, I feel compelled, nay, entitled, to tell you bizarre facts about animals that you didn't really want to know. For example, did you know that lobsters urinate out of the front of their faces? I wish I was making that up, but sadly, no, the lobsters that everyone know and love in Lernia have indeed been pelting you with weaponized piss. Speaking of weaponized piss, I've really been enjoying using Ice Spear as of late. I know a lot of people just like using it as this shield breaking technique until 1.05 inexplicably removed that, but I found it an actually decent mix-up even if it has no tracking. Not all of us can fire off projectiles in the same way as those lobsters, but this is about as close as I can get. I also love the look of Ice Spear on the Knight's Twin Blade, it really fits the vibe of the rest of this build. I gotta say though, that this invasive species of Bonfire Duelists aren't really looking for duels, or at least don't quite understand what a duel actually is in Elden Ring. So here's a little PSA for them. It's not a duel if you're wearing a rune arc. Having 30% more health with Morgoth's rune or 40 levels with Godric's rune is not a real duel. It's not a real duel if you start healing during it. You have twice the amount of healing items that I have. I personally don't mind if you heal because after all, it's an invasion and I'm looking for interesting PvP encounters and not a 1v1 duel. But if you want to actually duel people, I'd suggest not starting at rune level 45 in the first place. It's also not a duel if you have the blue cipher ring on and active. Even if you're trying to start a fight club, blues are idiots, and you should know that they're idiots. So don't summon them because even if you do have a duel going on, they're just going to interrupt it. In case you couldn't tell, in general, I don't like duels. I don't trust any of the hosts here, and if I have to load into Boil Prawn Shack one more time to a lone host standing near the grace point, I might have an aneurysm. But nonetheless, I will do my ecological duty and eradicate these Bonfire Duelists from existence. You see, much like the Crucifixion Woods in Dark Souls 3, or Darkroot Basin in Dark Souls 1, whenever From Software places a very shallow body of water in an area, just the worst types of players flock to it. It's like some sort of animalistic instinct for them. Like, have you ever seen a dog fall into a swimming pool? They suddenly just figure out how to swim by thrashing their paws in front of them? That's a pretty stupid and specific example, but it's happened to me twice before at this point. As a kid, my family rescued a couple of dogs that grew up in this really arid farm in the middle of nowhere that had 0 large bodies of water, and the first time our dog saw a pool, she just tried to walk over the water and fell right in. It took that sweet, stupid dog 2 seconds to figure out how to swim, but that instinctual reaction to water is exactly what I think happens with lousy players in From Software games. Oh, the water is up to my ankles, time to be a just gigantic piece of crap. I should remind you that very few of the players that I'm fighting here are actually good at the game. I'm not out here destroying quote-unquote hardcore ganks at Metapontiff with hate mail. You'll never believe what this ganker did next. The people I'm fighting for the most part are PvE players who decided to be fun to throw the Taunter's Tongue on. However, I would like it if they threw the Taunter's Tongue on and then summoned a friend, because those are the types of invasions I love the most. Those people want PvP, but they want it in a fun way that isn't just, let's ambush them with Corpse Piler in a small room. They seem to actually enjoy fighting people in this game rather than simply just being the winner of an invasion. Now, I thought with this one party here that they were all having fun, that they got what I was doing, and I wasn't taking their ganking too seriously either. And they finally got me after I killed them 3 or 4 times already. But no, they were extremely pleased with themselves because I got caught on a log in a lake. So I became the Joker. No, I didn't. I just reinvaded them 5 seconds later and spin slashed the bejesus out of them. I'm also about to demonstrate a few of my favorite techniques with this setup, the first being pressure with off-stock combined with Nagakiba running attack. That's it. That's the technique. Apologies for the bad manners here. I consider myself a little bit more dignified than to stoop to this level, but I chalk this teabag up to tactical taunting. Anywho. A technique I've been coming back around to is hard swapping, which is something I tried a little bit of in Dark Souls 3, but ultimately just got rather bored with in that game. On this character, for whatever reason though, I have been swapping back and forth between the Nagakiba and the Great Epee like a madman. It pays off the vast majority of the time, especially with Glintstone Pebble at my sleeve on the Great Epee. Some people will say that Elden Ring is just L2 the game, and to that I say, okay, and? By the end of Dark Souls 3's life cycle, that's essentially what the game was too, except you had to hard swap to your stupid halberd with the charge on it, instead of just attaching it to whatever weapon you want like you can in this game. They've just made the hard swap lifestyle easier instead of something that you had to design your menu for, which I always thought was just kind of ridiculous, but whatever. And the hard swap isn't too big of a deal, it's just been something that's been nice to use to put away really annoying hosts, which is a lot of what I find at Academy Gatetown. I think I can say with some certainty that I don't recommend invading here. It burned me out on the game for about a month because it really just isn't that fun. But if you do insist on invading here, my best piece of advice is just to liberally block people you don't really like. AFK farmer? Yes, that's still a thing apparently here. Block them. Dude wearing Bullgoats, Rune Arcs, Bonfire Dueling, and Bloodhound Stepping at rune level 45? That sounds like the opposite of fun to me. Block them. The Taunter's Tongue duo using Frost Spears, Bloodhound Step, and never running out of resources because they can Glintstone Crown glitch their way back to full health? Oh yeah, that's a block right there. If you're invading the same dude over and over and over again, who just has no idea what they're doing in the slightest, well, actually don't block them, beat the ever-living hell out of them, and teach them how to play this game correctly through repeated ass beatings. It's the only way they're gonna learn. The phrase, "you're gonna learn today, son," comes to mind when dealing with these Bonfire Duelist types. But this is how we all learn. I remember back when I was first playing these games with Dark Souls 2, getting my Dragon Eye picked up over and over by this dude with the Chaos Blade who just kicked my ass over and over again. But that thorough ass beating taught me how to deal with katanas in that game, especially with all that counter damage. It was kind of a valuable lesson to learn how to deal with that entire class of weapon. So be that big older brother for these Bonfire Duelists. Put them in a headlock and give them a noogie and keep invading them until they either get good or decide to start invading as well. But what do I expect you, the audience, to take away from all this? What is the point of this unhinged rant, you might ask? Well, it's the fact that invading solo hosts in this game kinda really sucks. If you invade someone who is good at the game, it's this awful war of attrition while they use their rune arc and flask advantage over you, while they bring in blues that cover up the few mistakes they may make in their play. But if you invade someone who's lousy at the game, every invasion plays out practically the exact same way. You sit through a loading screen, you locate the host, you annihilate them in 1 to 2 hits. You gesture over their corpse, and sit through another loading screen. Rinse and repeat. I don't know about you guys, but that just doesn't seem like a fun time to me. And at least in Dark Souls 3, the time to kill for your opponents was higher, and they had the 30% health advantage due to the Ember, and even then, the Way of Blue Covenant was practically handed to literally every player who came to the High Wall of Lothar, so the host almost always had a blue on the way to help them out. But if solo host invasions were a thing in Elden Ring, you get a whole bunch of hosts who don't level their vigor, which is the current norm, hosts who are typically by themselves, since the Way of Blue equivalent in this game isn't handed to the player, it has to be bought and activated in order for it to work. And even if they do have the White Cipher ring on and active, the time to kill is such that most of the time the PvE hosts you've invaded will be dead before the blue even shows up in the world, let alone finds their way over to the host. The only way I'd actually want to see solo host invasions implemented is if the blues show up simultaneously or even before the invader. That would be ideal in my opinion, since activity as a blue would skyrocket, and the solo host who would inevitably complain forever about this change can't really complain about dishonorable invaders, or being ganked by a sweaty invader and the enemies in the level, since they'd always have a numbers advantage over the invader. And invaders would or should be happy about this proposal, since it means more interesting activity that isn't just curb stomping some hapless solo host who barely knows how to play the game. Instead, you'd be curb stomping 2 people who aren't very good at the game, but they at least have a chance because, well, there's 2 people. This of course would only really work if From Software actually balances their game and severely nerfs things like Rivers of Blood and Dual Naganatas, but we have no idea if and when that will happen. The other aspect of the activity problem is matchmaking ranges, especially between the levels of 40 and 100. For some reason, all of the invasion activity in the game seems to drop off between those ranges, and I suspect that it has to do with FromSoft's usual invasion matchmaking ranges clashing with their open world game. Essentially what I think is happening is that people are going to many different places either too early or too late, and leveling their gear either too high or too low for those to be fitting in with FromSoft's level and weapon upgrade hybrid matchmaking. And those players shouldn't be expected to do anything else. This is an open world game where the promise is that you can go wherever you want as long as you can reach it. But the matchmaking still treats this game like it's Dark Souls 3, where you're getting spoon-fed exactly the right level of upgrades at the right time at a certain soul range. Frankly, this needs to change in order for mid-level invasions to flourish. I think that the rune level ranges are fine, but what would really need to change in my opinion is the weapon upgrade levels. Past rune level 40 or 50, I think weapon upgrade ranges should expand the same amount a good 2 more upgrades in either direction. An invader who currently has plus 16 regular weapons can invade down to plus 12 and up to plus 21, but I think you should expand that range to plus 10 and plus 22, as long as they are still within a reasonable rune level range as the invader. I know that matchmaking ranges already expand as you get further along in the game, but my current point is that they should open up sooner rather than later. For me, it's just a shame that I cannot for the life of me get consistent invasions in Leyndell, and that's maybe the coolest level FromSoft has ever designed. And I think all of that has to do with people getting there at different points in the game, with different rune level and weapon upgrade ranges that don't really fit into PvP matchmaking ranges. So I'd love to see that change, but sadly, I'm not really holding my breath. Well, thank you guys for listening to my long, rambling rant about Academy Gate Town and PvP matchmaking in this game. This is maybe a more negative video than I'm used to putting out, but be assured that I don't plan on making a ton more content like this. In the last week or so, I've been having just a stupid amount of fun with a rune level 37 spellcaster build that gets tons of activity and has been maybe my favorite build of Elden Ring thus far, so I'm hoping to get that video out sometime in the near future. And I am still having a lot of fun with the game despite the game's problems. But until then guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.